I'm sure I don't need to explain anything if I said the word Squaresoft. As a company, Square has made countless hits over the last 3 or 4 decades thanks to their expertise in RPG video games, most notably Final Fantasy. In the 1990s, however, Square started to experiment with different styles and other video game genres, leading to wacky and rather wonderful creations that are still beloved by many today. There's just one problem. For the PlayStation at least, most of these unique games never saw a release in European territories. Square's older games command a lot of respect these days, and for RPG gamers at least, there's no better company on earth that does it better. Sadly, I'm personally not big into RPGs, so much of Square's magic has not completely rubbed off onto me. I do find it pretty interesting that many of their high-profile PlayStation titles never made it to Europe. This video then will delve into the games Square decided not to release in Europe and allow us to have a first impression as to whether or not the games in question are any good. To find out, I used Duckstation to emulate the 10 games featured in this video, and aside from a 2x scale, I've made the visuals look closer to actual PlayStation hardware, although the dithering pattern is a bit different than what's featured on real hardware. Now, let's begin. First up, it's Final Fantasy Tactics. This turn-based strategy game was a spin-off to the ultra-successful Final Fantasy series. It saw release in 1997 in Japan and early 1998 in North America. I love turn-based strategy games and I was pretty eager to play this one. I didn't get far, but I can see why this title still gets plenty of love to this day. The story is interesting, the gameplay is addictive and well put together, the graphics are very appealing, and that soundtrack. It's just a wonderful experience all around, and I enjoyed my time with Final Fantasy Tactics. You have to be patient and it will challenge you even in the early fights. Luckily for us Europeans, the PSP version titled War of the Lions did see a European release in 2007, so grab it and have some fun. Next up is SaGa Frontier, which is an RPG game released in 1997 and 1998 for Japan and North America. To be honest, I wasn't crazy about this game. I loved the way the game looks, and the battle system was interesting. I also liked how we are attempting to escape the prison cells with 2 other ladies, hopefully finding freedom. Did I mention there's a lot of characters to pick from at the beginning of the game? To be frank, trying to leave the prison was tedious and I kept getting lost. When I finally thought I was getting somewhere, whoops, back to square one. I think I need to use a walkthrough next time and truly see what this game is all about, because there's potential and charm here. Thankfully for my European breadwinds, you can play it today thanks to Square re-releasing it on various platforms in a remastered form in 2021. Einhander, was next to be released from Square. Released in 1997 for Japan and 1998 for North America, it was Square's first attempt at a scrolling shoot 'em up. I actually own the Japanese version, and it's mostly English friendly, so don't be afraid to pick up that version. Anyway, this game is pretty cool. The action is plentiful but reasonable. I love the 3D graphics, and the shooting mechanics allow for unique weapon customizations. I especially love the soundtrack here. It suits the gameplay and the setting that the game takes place in. I like the gritty nature of it all, definitely worth listening to outside of the game. It sucks that the game missed Europe, but if you need to get it for your own PS1 collection, get the Japanese version. Although, bear in mind, both the Japanese and the North American versions are going up in price, so be quick about it. Now, it's time for the cult classic Xenogears, released in 1998 for both Japan and North America. This game almost wasn't released in America due to its heavy use of religious themes, but fortunately Richard Honeywood was at the helm of its translation and it appears to have been successful. I was charmed by Xenogears from the start. It looks amazing, the soundtrack was a breath of fresh air, and the characters are all likeable. I just want to know more about each of them. The battles, being this is an RPG game, were quite fun to participate in, especially with the combat system in place. I'm pretty much drawn to this game. Faye definitely has a lot of mystery behind his story, and I'm interested in seeing how it plays out. Because the game is rare in North America, there's not many ways to play it outside of emulation, so play it if you can and experience why this game is still praised more than 20 years later. Next, it's by Bushido Blade 2. This is a strange one. Released in 1998 for Japan and North America, this 3D weapons fighting game wasn't released in Europe, and considering that the first game was well received here, I don't get why Square would leave us in the cold. Bushido Blade 2 is a unique game in that a well-placed strike will kill your opponent. It's not easy though. The controls are stiff, and timing is the key. You can change stances, run freely, and use a variety of weapons, although all characters do have a preferred weapon by default. Me personally, I like the katana the most. This is a great game that's hard to put down once you start playing it. You really have to think on your toes, and just attempting to charge in will result in your demise often. It still stinks that this wasn't released in Europe. It would have sold respectable numbers, if you ask me. Come on Squaresoft, release this in remastered form for the European market in 2021 or beyond, please. Also, in 1998, Parasite Eve was released to both Japan and North America. This title still receives critical praise today, and I've always wanted to try it for myself. I can say, after an hour of gameplay, I get why the game is so beloved by many people. Parasite Eve is a sort of hybrid of RPG and horror elements smashed together while being set in the modern world. The storyline is just engrossing and pretty insane. I have to be honest, plenty of "did I just see this actually happen" moments all throughout the game, and the gameplay is pretty nice. It's part Resident Evil exploring the environment, part real-time RPG action with free movement. Actually, the gameplay in the battle section reminded me of Vagrant Story, which is a good thing. The soundtrack is awesome. No other word describes it perfectly for me. It's creepy yet engrossing at the same time. It blurs the line between real and fiction as you come to terms with the situation unfolding around you. Simply fantastic. I definitely want to keep playing Parasite Eve. The game is better than I expected. For some reason, this game wasn't released in Europe, but the sequel was. Odd choice indeed. Brave Fencer Musashi is next, and I actually own the Japanese version. I love the packaging, and to be fair, the game itself is pretty fun. The American version has some pretty funny voice acting which I just adored from the start. Since most of Square's games had silent protagonists, this was a breath of fresh air.
He's rather small. This will not do. It must have been too large of a task for the princess.
Hey, wait! Like, do you think I'd actually make a mistake?
The story is pretty interesting, and the gameplay, although simple, is pretty fun and gets deeper the more you play. Like all the other games in this list, I didn't play too much, so I know I'm missing out on a chunk of the game, but on first impressions, this is a compelling product, and I cannot wait to jump back into this world. It's a real shame that we didn't get this game over here in Europe. Threads of Fate is next, and I have to say, this game made me laugh a lot. You get to pick from two characters, and I'm sorry, they called her Mint? Like, this Mint? You can tell I got a kick out of her name, always referencing it wherever I could. It also helped that the game was just comedy gold with its dialogue. The people behind the character development clearly loved working on this game. Aside from that, the game is an action RPG game, and I like both the combat and the areas that we explore. The vibrant colours and lusciousness to the environments really help the game stand out from Square's other efforts up to this point. This is an addictive game, and one that I wish got a European release. I definitely recommend this one. Very well done indeed. Legend of Mana didn't exactly thrill me. It's a shame because this title has potential. I love the way it looks and the soundtrack was really nice. The story holds promise and I like the way we have to shape up the world as the game goes on. I thought that was genius and could hold a bit of replay value on subsequent playthroughs. The trouble is, the game is not clear on how to proceed and running in circles just to figure out how to keep the game going got boring fast. Yes, I should have used a walkthrough, but in my opinion, that sort of defeats the purpose of experiencing a form of media, especially in gaming. I will say though that if you want to experience the game for yourself, it was released on various consoles in 2021, finally giving the mainstream audience a chance to experience this game in remastered form. I do believe this game is better than what I'm saying in this video, so if you like what you see, go for it. The last game in this video is also legendary. It's Chrono Cross. This game was so well received it got a perfect 10 from GameSpot. I'll always remember seeing that as a child and wondering if this game was worth that perfect score. The game literally explodes into life and Square's best elements come into play here. The graphics are really nice, using a blend of 2D and 3D character models to help bring the world to life. I like how interactive the battles are and its risk and reward system where stronger hits can miss more frequently than the weaker attacks, but you get rewarded with an instant kill or more damage if it does connect with the enemy. The characters are fun to interact with and there's a connection to both the world you're in and the characters you meet along the way. I love the soundtrack too. It's a masterclass in how to make the perfect RPG soundscape. I was pretty happy with my first go with Chrono Cross and I do see why GameSpot loved it all those years ago. Is it a perfect 10? No, of course not, but as a quality game, it's definitely one to check out, absolutely. Just a damn shame that we never saw it released here in Europe. Square Enix, are you listening? Can you also remaster this game worldwide for everyone to play, especially us in Europe? Thank you, if you've done it already, and if you haven't, please do it. There we are folks, 10 titles that Squaresoft developed that ultimately missed the European market. A lot of the games featured are now well loved classics, and thanks to many of them not selling a ton of copies, quite a few are expensive to purchase outside of the Japanese originals, which are still fairly cheap. I wasn't crazy about all of the games featured, but all of them will have appeal to someone, and I hope if you decide to try them out yourself, you'll have a ballin' good time trying them out. What do you folks think of the game Square didn't release in Europe for the PS1? Should I also look into the Japanese exclusive games also from Square for the PlayStation? Let me know, and I hope to see you all again next time.